So the people that are not here will have missed the overall explanation, although they'll see the. Okay, so having done all of this, let's first of all we'll create the schema. The role we'll do last, but the schema we'll do right away. So I'm just going to do create schema client client schema. I just name schema schema. You don't have to. And that's actually all there is to creating a schema. So a schema is basically just an ownership, as I've explained before. Actually, we have a client schema, right?
Yeah. So I got an error when I executed it for save already.
It's interesting that it didn't. Oh, because I'm in master.
Yep.
So let's do a different name for it. What do we want to call it? Client schema 2?
Clients schema?
Yeah, maybe. Those double S's can be a. Client schema B. If you don't have client schema, you can just use client schema. Yeah. What do I want to name it? Client schema B, maybe. I don't know. Or grant client schema, maybe. So if you just go with client schema, just go with that. If you don't have it. The reason I didn't get an error is that I made my schema in master. I didn't change databases. Schema, for those couple of you that haven't done this in the afternoon, are basically ownership. And when you look at the views here, you do like last time we did this client schema dot. Client schema owns this view. Most of them are DBO. DBO is a schema. It's the database owner. It's the default schema. Everything is owned by a schema. And DBO is the default. So. It is a schema, yeah. But it's the data. It literally is the database owner. So DBO stands for database owner, and it's one of the schema. Actually, if we go under schema, so if we go down to security and look at schemas, there's a whole bunch of built-in ones. One of which is DBO, database owner. We did the grant client schema now. Information schema actually is a default. Most everything here except, I don't think guest is actually a built-in schema, but I don't remember if we made that. It might be a built-in schema. So each of these are built-in schemas. They actually map directly to roles. There's a role with these names too. Most of these are not being used by anything except, I'm not sure why they have DB owner and DBO. They're the same thing, essentially. For real life, I find these schema and the roles that go with them way too broad. They're good for quickie testing of things, but they're way too broad. So we're going to create a grant client schema, and if you have client schema, just always remember to leave the grant off. So one of the first things we need to do, and this is fairly easy, is we need to be able to see what kinds of grants there are. So I'm just going to do create a view. Create a view. The way you make a thing belong is you do grant client schema, and I'm just going to do VW. Do another underscore. Actually, it's a dot before this. Dot VW underscore. What do we want to call this? View grant types or something.
You said clients.
Oh, I did clients. That's interesting. Something between a client and a giant.
Giant client.
Yeah. So I'm just going to do select. Actually, shouldn't ever say select star. I'm going to say, so basically we want the fields in grant type. I'm just going to put the columns in there. But I'm going to get rid of the key. There's no reason they need to see the key. I might alias these. I'm going to break this just to put it all, get it all down here. So I'm just going to change this to name, and this one to I'm going to put a square brackets around it. I'm going to say 1 time maximum. This one I'll just do lifetime maximum, and then I'm just going to make this one description, and then from grant types, our grant type. Now, what does it not like about that? Oh, thank you.
Apparently, lifetime is a reserved word in SQL.
If you do it together, yes. So the lifetime of an object. Description is a keyword too. So if I execute that, and then if I go up to views,
did you execute the whole?
I had made the schema first.
Oh.
In fact, if you don't, it'll give you an error. So I'm going to do refresh, and we'll see grant schema, grant client schema, view grant types. And if I do a quick select from that, and because I'm in DBO, I have to actually write the grant client schema dot VW underscore view grant types. And I'll just run that. Whoa, did I spell something wrong? Client schema dot VW view grant types. That actually should be fine.
VIE, not VEI.
Dyslexia comes again. All right, so that gives us a list of all the grants and the one-time maximum, lifetime maximum. One of the nice things about views for security is they don't need to know what the underlying column names are. They have no idea what the table name is. You know, through looking at it through a view, you can totally obscure the underlying table. It makes it much harder to attack because you don't know what the column names are or anything like that. Does that make sense? Ideally, the application or whatever should never have direct access to the tables if you can avoid it. It shows you through views and store procedures. Yeah.
It's for me, I think that one has column names for some reason.
You don't have a from. Oh. You have to have the from grant type.
No, we're just doing a lecture on the kind of some security stuff.
Okay. So did that make? I mean, that's a real simple one. Whether we do all of these or not, I don't know. It depends on how far you want to go. I did the go there, and if I do a go here, it doesn't matter a whole lot, but it gets rid of the red underlines if you don't like them. The thing, what the Go is doing there is it's just separating batches. Certain things, and they're almost always create or alter objects. The rule is basically this whole thing has to complete before you can go on to the next. So Go is basically a way of saying, finish this completely before you go to the next one. Sometimes if you don't have that, it'll just try to rush through. You know, it may not complete this before it goes to this step and etc. and it just crashes back. In other environments, the position of the Go is handled by a semicolon. Here it will ignore the semicolon. There are a couple of cases where semicolons are required, but they're fairly rare in SQL Server. But in other environments, the semicolons are required. And where the semicolons would go, and I don't know why that one has a, so this isn't refreshed, this one. There are a couple of keystrokes that will refresh this window to make it reflect what's over here, but I never can remember what they are. So you may get some errors, particularly when you're creating things, because the two aren't in sync. All right, let's do one of the hard things. Let's do the registration, because they need to be able to register. Those of you that did the 222, we essentially did this. Do you guys want to walk through it again, or just let it? It can be complicated. Walk through it again? Okay. So I'm going to create a procedure, and I'm going to call it, you know what, so if I were to do this for real, I would probably not put it in the schema, because everybody's going to need to register, donor or that, so why do one for one schema and one for another? I'd probably leave it in DBO. Again, this is the kind of thing that you should think about when you're building the database as opposed to after the fact. So let's just do it in DBO. So we'll just call it USP underscore register. And we will need to have all the fields that they need to register. This is the hard part when you're doing this kind of stored procedure. And you just have to think about what are all the fields that they would need. And they have to come in as parameters. Think about what the form would contain on a web page, because that's what it's going to be. Basically, all the text boxes on the form would feed through to this. So when we want to register, we need all this stuff from person. So I'm going to go to person. I'm actually just going to drag the columns in, and then I'm going to delete a lot of them. We don't need the person key. It won't exist anyway. We need we will need their first name, last name, email, password. We don't need their entry. We don't actually need. We need a. We don't need the entry date or the word seed. And I'm going to do this as person plain password, because it's not their actual password that we're going to be using. Each of these needs to have an @ sign in front of it, because they're variables, and each needs to have a data type. Yeah, that's fine. If you don't want to make it, you don't have to. Or you can make it again with a different name. So the password, do we want to actually allow it to be 255 characters?
50 maybe.
Maybe, yeah, let's do 50 as a max. All right, so those are those. We also need all the address stuff, right? So I'm going to go to person address. I'm going to bring in the columns. This is because I'm lazy and tired today. Don't want to type them in. We do not need the address key. We can have the apartment, street, city, state, zip. We do not need the person key. These are just the stuff the user needs to enter, right? So I'm going to do a couple of things with these. I think we did it last time, but so I'm going to do in varchar 255, but I'm going to say equals null. You guys know what that does?
It's, it means it's null by default.
Well, yeah, and it allows nulls.
Okay.
It'll enter a null if you don't enter anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, not everybody has a room number.
Right. City, I'm going to do in varchar 255, but I'm going to say equals Seattle. And what that does is, again, is it makes a default of Seattle. I think it's, yeah, that's right. This one I'm going to do in car 2, which hopefully won't upset things. And I'm going to say equals Washington. Now, when you do a default like that, that only goes in if you don't enter anything else. Right? If you enter something else, it will overwrite it. But I'm forcing this to be a 2-character state, which I didn't do in the table. And we might actually have to make it in varchar. I don't know. Will in-car go into in varchar? It should. The zip code I was going to make. Let me see what I did for the. I did in varchar 255, which is stupid, but that's all right. So we could do in varchar 11, yeah. Generally, smaller will go into bigger. So that's usually not a problem. This might be a problem. This might have to be in varchar.
You used in car.
And it worked okay. So we also need, and these are, I'm just going to type in, yeah, at home phone. Which is just going home phone. Also in varchar. We could limit the number of characters, but I'm going to allow it to be equal null. And I'll do work phone. And it also can be null. So we have a whole bunch of fields there. Let me lower this. See if I can get it all there. The register, I mean, it's all the things you would think that you need on the form, right? All the things you need to put on the form. It's underscored there because I haven't finished beyond the ends. Thinking about what fields you need. Now, I didn't put the date there because we can automatically assign a date. Right? Person key is going to get assigned as we go through. There's a couple of other, the password and the password seed, we will assign in the process here. So, a couple of things when you're doing these, and I've talked about this before, you should actually probably write out the steps that you're going to need. Right, so we could do this real quick. we could build, in class we built it in 3 stages. We built first just the inserts, and then we went back and did the make sure that they don't exist. And then we also add the password stuff, which I think I'm going to just walk through it in one stage now, because it's not super. I just want to show you the goal of this is actually just to show you the security aspects of it.
Super long.
It is going to be super long.
120 lines.
Yeah. It is going to be long. This is the hardest one. And again, if you have the old one, you're welcome to use it. But I'm going to say if you probably don't have the old one if you're using the because it's not in the virtual.
I saved some my assignments.
And I will post this code.
I still have them saved in OneNote and sample stored procedures from 222 last class.
So in here, I am going to do if exists. And what I'll do is I'll see if it exists. Actually, let's do if not exists. That actually makes more sense structurally, I think. And what I'm going to do is select person email. We could actually get by with just person email, and I might now just for ease. But typically what you do is you match several fields. The reason why we could get by with just person email is that there is a unique index on email, so it has to be unique. So if the email exists, then they exist. And I know 2 people would have the same email. So we could get by with that. But typically what you do is you'd select person email. Actually, we don't even have to select person email. We can just select person key. Okay, from person where, and this is the key part, I'll do where person email equals at person email. And I'll just do and person, what else would we want to use to specify them? Last name. Yeah, let's just do that one. And person last name equals at person last name. And you could match. The trouble is if they're changing something, you might still get a duplicate in there. But let's say person email anyway. That's good enough. That should check their uniqueness. So if they exist, if they don't exist, then we're going to go through the process of inserting them. So I'm going to do begin and end, and I'll comment this a little bit. So I'm going to first say check to make sure they don't exist. And this is actually, just like all programming, this is actually a really good idea to do, because you might have other people that have to work with the database, and it would help guide them through what's going on. So I'm just putting comments in here. So if they don't exist, then we're going to want to do the inserts. But before we insert, what do we have to do? I want to check. I'm pretty sure the functions are still here. So we have I do have a register one. Is that the one I'm? Yeah. Did I name this one USP register? Why is the register one already there? Let's call this something different. USP new register.
Yeah, I noticed that mine was it said like, oh, this is already.
Yeah, so I'm calling it new register. So if you're using the one online, you might have that already in there too. I didn't realize it was there. What I was looking for was functions. So in the scalar valid, so we got seed and hashed password, which we want. All right, so we'll call it new register. And so if they don't, what I want to do is first I'm going to do declare at, yeah, we could do seed first. At seed int, and I'm going to say it equals DBO fx, and I think we have to say equals select. No, I have to say, I think I have to do it as 2 lines.
You don't need, you just need equals.
Just equals DBO fx. Underscore get seed. Okay. And then I'm going to declare at, I think I'm just going to call it hash, which is var binary 500 equals DBO dot hash password. And then it takes 2 arguments. So one of them, oh, it's fx hash password. One of the arguments, the first argument is the seed. So we'll do cast seed as var car 50. I think that's what it says there. And then we want their plain, let me break this line. Plain password, right? So it's person plain password. Okay, is that right? Oh, with an at. And this is an at. And this needs another paren. I think I can break that too. Okay.
What's the cast doing?
So the seed is an int, but we need to change it to a character type. So get seed doesn't take any. It should say what it returns. I'm pretty sure it returns an int. And the hash password. Let's look at the parameters. The password is in varchar 50, so it should be in varchar. Oh, the parameters. This can go in as an int. Never mind. It converts it internally. Oh. It converts it inside to a string. I forgot. If you want to look at those, like I'm going to just hash password. I will script it as a create to a new query editor window. So this is the hash password function. So it takes a seed as an int and it takes a password. It returns var binary. I declare 2#, and then 2# is equal to the hash and the password. This is where I cast the seed to a character. And then I declare the hash as a var binary, and I set it to hash bytes, which is a built-in function with hashes. So I don't have to do the hashing manually, it does it. And I set it to the 512, SHA 512. And then it returns that. This is just so you can have the hash passwords. My seed is a bit funky. I couldn't get the random number to work inside of it. It was objecting to a function inside of a function, although this works.
What is seed exactly?
So the idea, this is considered best practice on security, is that you should take some random string or number and concatenate it with the password and then hash the whole thing. And the purpose of that is that it pretty well totally eliminates the dictionary attack.
So it's like a salt?
Yeah, it's like a salt. I mean, it's not a salt in the sense of encryption. It's not something you can use to decrypt. But you need, it adds some trickiness to the login, because you have to go in and you have to take the username, retrieve the seed, rehash it with their password that they've given, and then check the hashes to see if they match. So there's a lot of network back and forth with with this method, but it's considered best practice. They're trying to do anything they can to keep your passwords from being deciphered. And hashes, I mean, you can't, unless a hash has been broken, and some of the earlier ones are, you can't unhash it, right? It's not like an encryption. There's no undoing it.
It's just like a one-way process.
Yeah.
You use hash passwords.
You can encrypt them too, but then you need the seed. And typically with encryption, what they do is the user has to know their own seed to encrypt it and to decrypt it. All right, so that's the pass. So let's go back to the other thing.
Oh, I need to open.
So having done this, so we have their seed in the hash. The only other things that we might want to do, and I'm just going to do these right here. I'm going to declare at person key as an int. I'm not going to give it a value yet, but that's just a variable that we'll need. I'm going to declare at I'm just going to call it current date, and I'm going to make it date. When we do these dates, they're just dates, right? Or are they date time? So when we do person, there's a date added, entry date, and it's date time. So we want this to be date time, and we'll just do equal get date. I didn't do this last time. I'm trying to be more, so let's do, I'm going to just real quickly comment this, declare and set variables. My more typical way to do this is to declare them as I need them, you know, but sometimes it's clearer if you do them together. So the only other thing I'm going to do is declare at home phone type int equals 1. And then I'm going to declare at work phone type equal to int equals 2. And what I'm doing is these are like constants. and I'm naming them so that when I do the 1 or 2 in the insult, or the insert, when instead of writing 1 or 2, which are basically just magic numbers, they'll have a name that explains what they are. I think when I did it before, I just did, when you insert into contact, for the first number, I just put 1, because 1 is the number for home phone in the phone types, contact types,
Okay.
and 2 is the type for work phone. And there are a few others in there too, which you could make a list of them if you want. In programming in general, and I'm a kid, as I said, I'm often very sloppy about this, but it's a good idea to name things. When you just put a number into an equation, they call that a magic number. Where did it come from? What does it mean? Right? If you're looking at the code as a stranger, why would the insert have a 1 in there in that position? This will tell you a little bit more about that, right? It gives you a name and it assigns a value. So that's the principle of using constants. And there isn't a true constant in SQL that I know of. I mean, not a type called const or something. All right, so that's all my variables. And again, I declared them all at the top, which is not my normal way because I tend to think these things through as I do them, which is not what you should do. And I tend to just declare them as I need them. All right, so those are all the variables that we need. The other thing I'm going to do, and we talked about this, so I'm going to begin try catch, and then I'm going to begin a transaction. So I'm going to say begin try, and then I'm going to do begin tran. Do you guys remember why I did these?
So that you can roll it back.
Right. So one of the things is when you're doing an insert like this, and we're inserting into 3 different tables, you generally want all of them to happen or none of them to happen. It's called atomicity, actually. So you want it all or none. And so the way you can do that is you can do the try, and if there's an error on any of the tables, then you can roll it all back. Yeah.
So does the tran come
Oh,
first or
Try should come first because we need to. No, actually, tran should come first because of the scope. Good catch. I would have figured it out when it wouldn't let me roll back. So let's do begin try. And you can do spaces in this. It often can help make it so that it's more readable. I have, because of my big fonts and the way the screen resolution, I don't have a lot of room up here, so I don't. But you know, there's spaces don't matter between things. So now it's pretty easy. We're almost done. Insert into person. And for the person, again, I can drag the columns over if I want. We don't need the person key because that'll be auto-numbered. I'm just going to break these down a little bit so that they kind of fit on screen. Okay, so I'm going to say values. And in each case, the value will be the variable. At person first name. And then I'm just going to add person email. At person, so actually, so this would be at hash. At, what is my next one? the entry date, which I called current date. And then at the last thing is the seed, right? So at seed. Okay. The hard part, the only thing with these inserts is just making sure that you have the same number of arguments down here as you do up there and that they're in the right order. It doesn't know, like it doesn't know the difference between last name and first name, so if you switch them, they would just be in the wrong order in the database. Right? All it knows is it matches first to first, second to second, third to third. It just matches them in sequence. Doesn't understand anything. A lot of people think that because the words are matched, that that they'll figure out which goes where, but it won't. The only time it'll complain is if the data type is wrong. So, all right. So then we can do. Oh, so we have person key, but I haven't assigned a value to it. So let's get the person key. So since I'm commenting, insert into person. I'm going to say, now this will be get person key. And I'm just going to say set at person key equals ident current person. Can you guys remember what ident current does? Right, it gives you the last auto number created in that table. This only works if you're using auto numbers. If you weren't using auto numbers, you'd probably have to do a query right here, or you would have invented your own key and you know what it is anyway. So then I'm going to, since we have that, now we can do insert into person address. And again, because I'm kind of lazy, I'm just going to drag the columns in. When you're using auto numbers, you don't insert into the key. Oops. Whenever I want to do press enter to break it, I always seem to be deleting stuff instead. All right, so I'll do that. And then the values are basically the same thing, so I could almost just copy.
So you're at
Yeah, I know. I just have to go and put an at in front of each one. Okay. Now there's a couple of things I'm going to do here. So this is insert into person address. Now with the phone numbers, they're both nullable, right? So I am going to do a couple of ifs here. And indentation is also not a bad idea. So I'm going to do a check on the phones. I'm going to say if at, was it home phone? Is not null. And I'm going to do begin and end. Again, remember, those are just the curly braces. I find them much more annoying than curly braces. So what I'm going to do is, so if the home phone is not null, then we want to insert into contact. And let's find contact. I'm going to drag the columns in, and then I'll break them up a little. So we don't need the contact key. Did it again. All right. And I'll just do the same, except it won't be, well, let's just type it. So it's at home phone is the number. The contact type key is at, what did we call it, home phone type. And the person key is at person key. Okay. And then I'm going to do if at work phone. No, it doesn't like at work phone. What did I call it? Work. Well, I have work phone type, but work phone. Why is it not like work phone? Oh, it's okay now. And I do begin and end. This is a lot of work. I didn't actually necessarily mean to do this much work today. So what we'll do is, actually we can just sort of copy this and change some values. So this, instead of home phone, is work phone. And this is work phone type, and then the person key is the same. So that's everything. And if all things go well, I'm going to commit tran. I'm going to do end try. I'm going to do begin catch. And I'm going to do end catch. And then inside of this, I will do roll back tran. So if there are any errors, we'll roll it back. We could, there's a couple of things you can do. If you're doing this actually for an API thing, one of the things we did was echo, you can echo out the, basically print the error message, but that won't go. If you're writing a web page, it won't send the error message. The error message only works inside of this context. But you could do, see if I can get it, return, I think it's error number. Is that right? And it will return the error number to the application. That's still a problem. I mean, it doesn't give you the error message, but it gives you the number. So by default, what happens is it will return 1 if it succeeds and -1 if it fails. But if you want to know why it failed, the error number at least gives you something to look up. Let's, just for us to be, it has to be before the return, print that'll print the error message inside that. But this only works in this window. It doesn't work anywhere else. You can do like a lot of languages. If you're trying to error trap as you work. You could try to do, you can do print statements along the line to have it print out different values and things as it goes. Does that make sense?
So, like any custom message or something?
Say again.
Any custom message for error? Like inside the print, can you print like, something you want?
Oh, so yeah, you can print anything you want. So we have the print the error message. You could also do print the insert was unsuccessful or whatever you want. And I do believe, although I haven't tried to do this, that you can define your own errors. And along the way, because there are things that are that you don't want to happen that are not technically errors, you can cause it to throw an error. So you can force it to throw an error if something happens. So you could do inside of an if statement, you could say like as if this is null, throw an error. And then it would pop down here and you could do. So let's see if I can make all of this. It's a pain because you have to go all the way to the top, create, and go all the way to the end. Oh, so I haven't done the if they don't exist. Do we want to do anything with that?
No, I think we have done this much in the last class.
Yeah.
I think it will work.
I know it'll work. What we're doing is if it doesn't exist, nothing happens. I mean, if it does exist, nothing happens. It does nothing. So the question is, would we want an error to say something if they do exist? Let's just, for right now,
We have written an else statement last time.
you could do like an else. And I'm just going to say print, I don't know, person already exists. Okay. Because it would have worked the way we had it. I mean, it would just work, and if they existed, it would just ignore it. But it might be nice to have something. So I'm going to go back up to the top. What did I do? Syntax error near semicolon. Where did I put a semicolon?
Line 22.
Oh, there is a semicolon. Oh, because I ran the view as well.
You just want to run the procedure, right?
Yeah, you just want to run the procedure. I just went up too far.
That one red line.
Syntax near end. Line 103. Oh, I didn't do a begin. Is that your error too?
No.
I'll come look. These are a pain, I know.
I see. Oh, I see where it is. Further up. Where I declare. No, it's not. Oh, it isn't.
Okay, mine finally worked. We'll try it in a minute. And then I don't know that I'm going to do everything, but I'll show you how to do maybe an insert a grant and how to update. Get just to view your own grant. You got yours fixed?
Yeah, I had a typo up there, but did you change?
Oh, you have to say else print. And you might need a begin. So you might need to do.
Oh, begin here.
So under else, so under else to do a beginning. You know, you might actually get away with that if you take the ends off. Get rid of both beginning. I think it might actually do that. If it doesn't, then we'll need to put that in a beginning. See who else has errors. Right, so let's look, we need the word as, or you gotta add. Let's just. So, oh, right, so actually, one of the things, this is I changed this, just is the, because that's actually what it is, the cap inside of it. That might actually be the, yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. And then this is our closeness. I don't know if that's the because of one reason. So, maybe we have that. So this is your thing. Type, it has to be typed. So, we just declare the and here's some key. Yeah, this is. C has to do underscore get C. Oops. No policy. So it doesn't like the else. So if you're doing the life cycle, begin. Oh, I'm sorry. So I think we need an catch.
Just move that.
said I'll post this. It's a complicated, more complicated than I meant to do. Let me try it though.
I ran mine already.
It worked.
Well, I didn't get an error. I should go see if I find it.
Yeah, so I'm going to go down to the programmability. So in store procedures, I'm going to refresh. So I have the new register, and what I want from the new register are the parameters. So I'm just going to bring each of these down. I'm going to do a couple of quickie tests on this. So I'm just going to say execute, and we just did this as USP new register. We need to give values to each of these. Guys have a good last name. I have no.
Caramel.
Caramel.
Oh, he's already in there, isn't he?
Is there probably is a caramel.
Caramel.
Let's do, there's probably a Nelson in there too, but whatever. First name equals, how about Miriam? I don't think there's an actual Miriam. Personal email, and I'm just going to do basically mnelson@gmail.com. And then I'm going to, plain password is just going to be like Nelson Pass. That's sort of my rule, just so I can remember. Person, address, apartment. I'm just going to leave that out. I'm going to let that be nullable. I'm going to do street equals, I don't know. South Sound Street. I don't know that there's such a street. I don't care too much. City is should just go in as Seattle. State should just go in as Washington. Zip equals what? 98100. I have no idea where that is. Let's do a home phone but no work phone. So I'll just do equals 206 555 0975. Those are just random digits. And that should go in. So one of the things I want to do, execute syntax error near. Where am I missing a comma? Oh, last comma. Okay, so that worked. And it should have multiple rows affected, so 3 rows affected. So if I do select star from person, and we could look for where that particular name, but let's just go. So there's Nelson, Miriam. Notice I've got the hashed password, the date, and the seed. So all that worked. I'm going to do person address, and the key for this one is 150. Yours may be different. So when I go to the bottom of this, the address, the person is 150, South Sound Street, no apartment. That all worked. And person address, and then contact.
What about city?
It should have been there. Person address. Seattle is there. And Washington is there. Those are both defaults. And then I'll do from contact. And it has the contact type num, and it has that, and it has the 150. So it worked. Now, if we run it again, it should not work, right? I said I just get the phrase that I did. Person already exists. I'm trying to think of a way to make this fail to get an error.
I got there.
What was your error? But
The rollback transaction request has no corresponding begin transaction.
oh, but that's an error in the stored procedure. I want an error in the data. And I don't want it to be one of the things that it won't catch. These, if you turn in the wrong data here, it'll just crash, right? There's no foreign keys here. I just can't think of a good way to make this fail. Anybody think of a way to make it fail? We're not entering the phone type. That you can make it fail if you entered the wrong phone type, but we aren't entering that, right? So and if the phone number is this, or if the email is the same, it's just going to just quit. So I just can't think of any way to make this fail, which is good, I suppose. But there must.
Could you enter a number that's too long? Like a,
But it would fail here.
Oh.
If you enter really a bad data value, it's likely to fail just when it assigns it here.
Yeah.
I wonder, it's possible if we did a really horrific password that was 50 characters long, that it might fail, but
That's not a horrific password. That's a strong password.
yeah, but I think it's horrific. If because of the way that the hash function works, I assume that the total length of it would be 50 characters. The password and the seed. So it'll always hash on 50 characters. I think if we had a password that was 50 characters, it might fail.
The digest is always going to be the same number. It's
What
the hash digest.
yeah, it's going to be, but it may not. If it gets truncated, it may throw an error.
I did get one error. I might have left out a field there. So I got a row, one row affected.
You did get it rolled
But
back?
then, so I just ran this, but
So
I
it
may
did
have
run
left
an error.
something out.
Cannot insert the value of the column.
Did I forget to? I don't see that listed here.
The insert value null into the column contact number does not allow nulls. So
Did I need to have the work phone number?
no, well, did you do ifs for those? You did if for home phone,
I didn't.
but you didn't do it
For
for
work phone.
you didn't have an if there for the work phone. So it's because you didn't enter a work phone,
Oh, so I should have said if work phone is not null,
right?
and then insert.
That actually is something I might. No, it won't let me enter a null.
Can I?
Actually, what happens if I do? I'm going to do at work I would have to change this. So I'm actually just going to leave at work phone as null. Well, so if it's null, it's not going to work because I have the ifs in there. I can't make that error happen, but your error trapping worked.
Okay, so it did work.
Because you got to the point where they wanted to enter the phone, work phone, but you didn't have one.
Okay.
And you
then
didn't have
did
an if statement to
So it
exclude
caught the
it.
error, but then theoretically it didn't create the contact, right?
Right,
The
but
insert failed.
it failed, it rolled it all back.
Okay. Cool.
So what you didn't have is this.
Yeah. So would I have to modify?
So you'd want to alter the stored procedure.
Okay.
But as I said, we spent a lot of time on the stored procedure, which is not really what I meant to do with
Okay.
this class. Let's do, we could do another procedure like this to insert the registration, but I mean the grant, but let's just do one to let them see their own grant, because that's actually more relevant. Right, so we just want them to be able to see their own grants. And we could do an update too, but let's just allow them to see their own grant. So this person that we just created wants to have any grants, but we won't worry about that. So I'm just going to do a create procedure, and this might be the last we do. And this one, because it is a grant one, I'm going to do in the schema. So I'm going to call it create a procedure. This one will be a lot easier than the other one. Grant client schema. And let's do, so dot USP view grant status. We did something like this already, right? It seems like we did something like this, but I don't know. So this whole thing may be a little redundant, but well, it's good to go over things again. So I'm going to do at, the only thing I'm going to insert is the at person key. And then the rest is just a complicated view, which we might already have. Is this the, I'm looking at this, that's a view. That's a totals. All right, so I'm just going to say select. And we want most of the columns from grant review. I'm sure we did a view like this somewhere. I'm looking under programmability to see if we actually did this. We did. Under client schema, we did it. Right? So I'm going to look at that. I'm going to, well, I'll walk through it. So we would want to see all the stuff from grant request. And I don't want the views, I want the table. Grant request. So particularly we would want to see the date. The grant type, I'm going to put that as grant type name. But this is exactly what we did in the other class. We want the explanation, which I may just alias as explanation. This I might alias as grant type. I'm going to put that in square brackets because it's also the name of a table. I'm just going to put the in square brackets date. All right, so I'm going to break that down. All right, so we've got, since I'm not using as in the others, I won't use it there. And we want to know the request amount. So put that in there. And I'm just going to call it request. Just leave it at request. Okay, and then I'm going to go into the grant review columns. And we want to know, do we want to know the review date? Doesn't hurt, I guess. I'm going to, in square brackets, review date. We want to know the status. So I'm just going to bring this in. And I'm actually going to do status. Is status a keyword? It is. And then the last thing I will do is the allocation amount. Grant request allocation amount. And I'm just going to call it allocation. And then I'm just going to do, so I need to do all the inner join stuff. From grant request. Inner join, not an inner join. Inner join. Grant type. And I might as well do this as request GT. So I'm joining those two, and then I'll join review. Grant review. Let's just do REV. On REV dot grant request key equals grant request key, and then just where. So this is really just a parameterized view where person key equals at person key. All right, so we did this before, but I'm going to run it again, and so if I do, and I'll walk through that again if you want. If I execute this, what's the name of it? And give it a person key, and I think 1 is one that works. It just shows the ones that they've got, right? It shows they can only see their own grants. So the only way you would want them to be able to select on grants is they get 800 when denied. I remember that. You would only want, you wouldn't give them a permission to select on grants. You'd only give them the permission to run the stored procedure. Does that make sense? I think that's enough writing these, but you can see how tedious it might be because you'd probably want to write all of the different stored procedures, views, and functions that every single user would need. And then you would give them permission. So let's give them the permissions again, which is also something we did last time. I think we have a, I'm just going to look under roles. Since we have a grant schema, we probably have a grant role, right? So let's look under security. Functions, database, storage, schemas, roles, database roles. We have a client role. what do we want to call it if we do a new role? Let's create new client role. Or since we've got it as grant client schema, let's do it as grant client role. And it's just create role with an E. We'll create that role. This one will be a little bit more complex. So what I want to do is grant to client, grant client role. So we need to say what we need to. What did we make? Did we make any views? We just made store procedures, right? There's no views. No, we did do a view. So we want select and execute, I think. So we want on. I'm going to do schema, double colon, grant client schema. I think actually this is on and this is to. And let me break the. Yeah, is that right? What is it not like here? Grant select execute on grant client role. Oh, on schema. To brain is tired. So we're giving them select and execute on the schema, and I will run that. Okay, and then I'm going to also grant select on, and then let's look at our views. I got a mess here. So we've got views. So these are, we could do VW donations.
So this is the thing we did.
This is very similar to what we did. Yes, it's almost the same. And I think the original thinking behind this was that in 226 we would have just worked out the theory of what we're going to do and then done the SQL here. But we did the SQL there too, so.
More practical.
Yeah. The only difference is that I'm adding more permissions. So most, we can do. I'm not necessarily going to do every view here, but if you're not, when it's not in the schema, you pretty much have to do. So we got VW donations. You pretty much have to do these views. Employees they don't need to see. Let's say grant type totals. So I'm going to add those two selects also to the. Two. So I just keep adding the permissions that they would need. So
What is wrong if you said if it says no permission?
what?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I typed it.
So what we've got is a permission, and I think I showed you last time. if we go into roles and we look at that grant type role, which I think we have to refresh to see, grant client role. And if we go to properties, and we look at securable, and I'm going to maximize this, you can see that they have execute permissions on the schema here and select. And on donations, they just have select, and on grant type totals, they have select. Right, so each one of these has their own permissions. And then if we wanted to add people to the this, we'd have to create a login and user. Do you guys want to make another login user type thing? Don't want to bother. As I said, I think the theory was that we would just do the scheme, set up the structure in the other class and then do the programming here, but we ended up doing it in both. The goal of this assignment would be to take, let's look at the actual assignment. And I will post these. And come on, you can do it. Launch. So I want to go into Canvas. So we need 224. So this is somewhat similar than what we did before, I think. Is this 224? Yeah. And this views and procedures, that's not what we're doing. So we're behind, we're ahead, right? So let's go to assignments. So we're way ahead, so we could take some time with this. But I think what we'll do is we'll just spend a lot more time on business intelligence, because I think that's actually more useful. So it said if these views have not already been created in 226, create a schema for every position. I don't know if you need to do that. And a role. I would just choose one. So did you do the manager schema in the other one? Was that I forget what we did. If you want to create a manager schema, if you haven't done that, and then create a procedure that lets the manager update an employee's information, one that assigns a driver, which would just be an insert, and then create a procedure that returns how many hours. That actually is really hard. You might not do that one. That, you know, basically maybe do it just from a manager's point of view. Lets a manager update an employee's information and add them to a route for a day. We didn't do any updates. Do you want me to do an update one? They're actually pretty easy, but I could do a quick update one if you want. All right, so let's allow a person to update, and this will be more complicated than what the employee one is because there's two tables here. I'm going to let them update their, should we just let them update their address, maybe not their person? We could make it simple, just do address. So just real quickly, we'll do, and I'll create procedure, and it'll be USP, let's just do update address. So I'm going to get all the columns in from address. So person address.
Didn't have one D in address.
Yes. which won't matter, but it'd look dumb. I didn't want to drag the table, I want the columns. So I'm going to just break these down again. We do want the person key here. We do not need the person address key though. All right, so I'm going to do, although if they have more than one address,
Oh,
do we want the person address key?
are there any in the database that have?
This could be a little more complicated, but you guys won't have this complication. Well, they can't enter their, well, this could come from, we'll just fake it. That could come from the web page, right? So this would be an int. This would be in varchar 255. And I think we should say equals null on that again. In varchar 255. Now, typically what you would do, so I'm not going to make that equals in var or in car 2. The way that these would usually work, you've probably done them. Let's do in car 11, and person key is int, and then as. What is it not like about these? Oh, it's not equal. The reason I'm not doing defaults on these is usually the way these work on a web page is if you're going to update something, they just show you the fields with all the current values, and then you just change the values you want, and it writes all the values back. Does that make sense? Because that's how it usually works. So you don't have to go through and check for each of these what's been changed. You just write them all back. If they didn't change it, you just leave it the way it was. So really all there is to doing this is once they've entered all this information, we say update person address. And we will say set person address apartment equals at person address apartment. And then just a comma, and basically it's person address street equals at person address street. And etc. Person address city equals at person address city. State person address zip equals at person address zip. And then this is the part why you do it in a stored procedure. where person key equals at person key. And because we're doing this, person address key equals at person address key. So basically what you're doing, the only reason you're doing this is to keep them from accidentally updating everything at once. There always has to be a person key and a person address key. So that's actually all there is to this. I'll run it and show you how it works. So it was created successfully. So typically, let's do a quick select from person address key. Select star from person address. So I execute that. But whose address do we want to change? Anybody? Just the first one? First one's easy to tell if we changed it. All right, so I am going to, I'm going to go up to the programmability, wherever that was, functions, stored procedures. So I'm going to refresh that. And we've got the update address. So I'm going to exec update address. And I'm going to get the parameters from that. Again, whoops. Let's undo that. I dropped it right in the middle of the thing. Okay, so now let's drag those in there. And I'm going to break these. And so it's typically what you would do. Again, these could come. So this is equal to 1. The apartment. I don't know if can I say equal null? I don't know if that'll work.
It doesn't like it anymore.
If I say is null, does that work though? I don't know. It doesn't like is either.
But if you leave it, won't it just continue to be null?
Hopefully. I don't know though. We can see. We could probably even just leave it out, but equal. So the person address key is equal to 1. Street is equal to. I'm just going to put the values in here. It wants a value. I don't know how it handles. Whoa, I have B. Control B. State equals Washington. The zip is equal to whatever the zip was. Okay, so I think everything is there except this. So doesn't like equal null? Mine is allowing it. So let's see, we need to make a change. The most obvious change would be what? Seattle or Man Street? Let's do like 1002 North Man Street. Let's see if that works. It says 1 row affected. So let's look at person address again. It did do the equal null. It allowed that. And it's North Man Street, 1002 North Man Street. So it's basically just doing an update, making sure that you have the where clause in there with the person key or the employee key, you know, or whatever you're doing. And as I said, on a web form, what would happen is you would get the form up, everything would be pre-populated. You would make whatever changes you want, and then it would just write it back. And basically, you just reset everything. But if it's the same, then it just rewrites the same. So that's an update. Okay, so I'll post all of this. I may give us time to do this. We still have like 50 minutes, but I'll give some time on whatever day we meet again, Tuesday. And then we'll see what you guys need. But we might start talking about the business intelligence stuff. Even though we're way ahead of schedule, there's enough there. I think I can take the rest of the quarter on it. We could do the whole quarter on it, actually. All right. That seems like it was a little incoherent today. Hopefully it wasn't. Oh, I have 2 copies of this up. Okay.
It's 1 o'clock.
What? Yeah, 1 o'clock is fine. Unless you guys stay till 1, but I don't think so. Yeah. All right, so let me go out of here. Stop the video.